How would current UFC lightweights fare against Khabib? Now, Khabib's been out of the UFC since 2020, October 2020, and there's been a lot more lightweight contenders. Since Khabib's retired, there's been two new champions who he's never fought. There's been so much more contenders that he's never fought. Just to clarify, I'm not going to be including people that he's already fought. For example, I'm not going to be including Dustin or Justin because he's already fought them. I'm only going to be including people in like the top 10 or people who deserve to be in this list who he hasn't fought already. Now, there's going to be a lot of close fights in this. There's going to be a lot of one-way, maulings, but we're just going to get into it. First of all, Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira was the lightweight champion. People said he would give Khabib his toughest fight. So did I. Before the Islam fight, I actually thought Oliveira could beat Khabib. I thought he had better striking. He had scary BJJ. But that Islam fight's kind of changed my decision now. Charles Oliveira, like I said, he would pose a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu danger that nobody else has. Nobody else that Khabib has fought has posed a Jiu-Jitsu threat at a high level like Oliveira would. Poirier wouldn't, Gaethje wouldn't, obviously McGregor wouldn't, who else did he fight? Ala Quinta wouldn't. Charles Oliveira would be the highest BJJ threat, so if Khabib was to take him down and fall into a guillotine, there is a threat. So I give Charles Oliveira a 50% chance of getting a submission. He is more dangerous on the feet. He's dropped, how many people? He's dropped Beneil Dariush, he's dropped Dustin Poirier. No, he hasn't. Did he drop Poirier? I don't know if he dropped Poirier, but he dropped Gaethje. He dropped Chandler. He's dropped a lot of his opponents. Now I don't think obviously Khabib's as good a striker as people like Gaethje. So I think Charles Oliveira will be really dangerous on the feet for Khabib, and the outcome would most likely be him getting wrestled and ground and pound to a decision loss. I can't really see Khabib submitting Oliveira because Oliveira's submission defense is really good. That being said, though, I think Khabib would just play it safe in the wrestling, try and avoid submissions. There'll be a few times where Khabib gets put in a sticky situation, but I think he'll just ground and pound him, and then once Oliveira's broken, Khabib will just play it safe. But I could definitely see Oliveira winning, but if I had to pick a winner, I'm going with Khabib. Then we move on to another person who in my opinion, would be the closest person to beating Khabib, but just wouldn't. Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler, I feel like this fight would be very similar to Volk versus Islam. I really do feel like Khabib would get a robbery win. I feel like Michael Chandler would do enough, but the UFC would give it to Khabib, or Khabib would find a submission. First of all, Michael Chandler's really powerful in the hands. If he was to catch Khabib, what's to say Khabib doesn't get flatlined? He's got great wrestling, probably the best wrestler that Khabib would have fought. He's very strong and short, meaning it's even harder to wrestle. I don't see Khabib just taking him down and dominating him. Only problem with Chandler is, first of all, his cardio. We haven't seen him go 5 rounds yet. His cardio is quite suspicious. He's very stupid as well. His fight IQ is ridiculous. He makes a lot of stupid decisions in his fights. I see it going similar to Volk v Islam, where Khabib, he out wrestles him for a lot of the fight, but Michael Chandler would give Khabib, in my opinion, the toughest fight of his career, besides like Glace and Tebow. And I think Chandler would. I think Khabib would win, but the fans would be like, "Oh, Chandler won. It was a robbery." But I can also see Khabib submitting Chandler, because if Poirier can submit Chandler, then I can definitely see Khabib doing it. But styles make fights, and I really do feel like the style of Michael Chandler will be the toughest for Khabib. So I'm going to say Chandler loses, but I wouldn't be surprised if Khabib was to somehow lose. Then we're going to Islam Makhachev, and I think Islam Makhachev would beat Khabib. Now, people think Islam Makhachev is just Khabib 2.0. I can kind of see why. Both friends, both Dagestani wrestlers. I'd say Islam's the better and more dangerous striker than Khabib. From what we've seen, Islam's shown that he's a way better striker. He's cracked Volkanovski. He dropped Charles Oliveira. He looks very good on the feet compared to Khabib. Khabib, I know he dropped McGregor, but that was only because of the threat of the takedown. So he's a way better striker, way more dangerous striker than Khabib. I think he'd be able to cancel out Khabib's wrestling. I can't see Khabib wrestling Islam Makhachev like he has done to the rest of his opponents, because Islam Makhachev is the best wrestler in the UFC right now, in my opinion, or one of them at least. So I don't think Khabib just wrestles him and keeps him down. In my opinion, it's most likely to be a split decision win for Islam. Keeps him busy on the feet, manages to cancel out his takedown, maybe even takes down Khabib himself, could even find a submission. But if I had to pick one, I'm going with Islam Makhachev by submission, by decision win. Very close. It would be very, very close, because obviously both very similar styles. But when it comes down to just striking, I've seen a lot more from Islam than Khabib, unfortunately. I know Islam's been knocked out before, but I will say Islam's more willing to take risks than Khabib as well. I feel like Islam's like standing with Volkanovski. I feel like if Khabib was to fight Volkanovski, he'd just shoot takedowns 24/7. So I'm going to say Islam Makhachev beats Khabib. Then we move on. Beneil Dariush. I think Beneil Dariush just gets taken down and ground and pounded pretty much. It's kind of similar to the Gaethje fight. He's not got too much of a striking threat. I know what he did to Gamrot, but he's not got like insane striking threat. If Poirier or Gaethje couldn't do it, then I really can't see Dariush doing it. I can see him getting submitted or a decision loss, just taken down, mauled a little bit. I know he's got a good Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but all that goes out the window when you're fighting Khabib, man, unless you Charles Oliveira. I think he just gets taken down, ground and pounded, and then submitted or decision loss. Yeah, I don't think Beneil Dariush. I mean, he lost to Charles Oliveira. I just can't see him beating Khabib. I mean, people say styles make fights. People said Beneil Dariush should beat Oliveira as well, and he lost in the first round. So I could definitely see Khabib finishing Beneil Dariush, if not at least a unanimous decision win. Then we move on to another lightweight, Rafael Fiziev. I think Khabib beats Rafael Fiziev pretty easily. I mean, we saw that Rafael Fiziev, he's a good striker, really good striker, probably one of the best strikers Khabib would face, and he has like a 5% chance of catching Khabib, but I don't see the wrestling in this guy. He hasn't really fought any grapplers yet. He fought Justin Gaethje, who stood with him. He fought Rafael dos Anjos, who stood with him. He fought Bobby Green, who stood with him. Khabib would not stand with him. He'd take him down immediately. Rafael Fiziev would not be able to get back up, and he'd just get mauled. Khabib would ground and pound him, elbows, just ground and pound and mauling until either the ref stops it because of the, how much he's getting battered, or he gets himself found into submission. I can see Khabib putting on an absolute mauling against this guy. Like I said, there's a chance that Fiziev could just somehow keep it on the feet for a little bit and then catch him with like a kick or an elbow, but I don't see it happening. Fiziev isn't like, I don't know, really, really good striker as Fiziev, but his grappling is quite suspicious. And when you're fighting the greatest grappler we've seen in the UFC, and you've got I can't speak, man. When you're fighting the greatest grappler in the UFC, and you've got suspicious grappling, that's not going to go well. Khabib takes him down, dominates him, and finishes him within a couple of rounds. Yeah, I can't see how Fiziev could ever beat Khabib. Then we move on to the last fight, Arman Tsarukyan. Arman's lost to Islam in the past, but he's got cardio. I'll give him that. He's got really good cardio. He's got finishing ability as well. But I see him getting outclassed and a decision lost. He's a very well-rounded. This would be a great fight. This would be a really good fight. There's a high chance that he actually catches Khabib as well, because like I said, he's well-rounded. I feel like it would be a bit of ground game, then striking, then ground game, then striking. And when it comes to the striking parts, I can definitely see Arman catching him. Most likely outcome is that Khabib outclasses him and Arman loses by decision. But Arman could do it, He has lost to Islam in the past, but that was years ago. And I think he got knocked out in the first round. But yeah, I think it'll be a close fight. Anything could happen, but if I had to bet myself, I'd bet by Khabib by decision. It wouldn't be an absolute mauling like it would with Fiziev, because like I said, Arman's he's very well rounded. He's got good striking ability, and he's good at mixing it with the wrestling as well. He's on a bit of a winning streak right now. I believe his last loss was actually Islam, so he's on a big winning streak right now. Wouldn't surprise me if he beat Khabib, but I wouldn't expect it, if you know what I mean. He's a chance of catching Khabib, but I think Khabib would get the job done. And yeah, that in my opinion is all the lightweight contenders that Khabib would potentially fight, and that's how I think he'd fare against them. The only one I feel like he'd lose to is Islam Makhachev, because they're very identical. I just feel like Makhachev's more willing to take risks, and I feel like he's just very similar to Khabib. Chandler would come very, very close. Oliveira would come very, very close. What have I done there? I've messed it up. Oliveira would come close. Dariush, he'd probably get mauled. Fiziev would get mauled. Arman has a chance. That's how I feel like he'd fare. Like I said, I'm not going to include people like Gaethje and Poirier because he's already fought Khabib. But yeah, if you guys agree that Khabib would do this against currently UFC lightweights, let me know. If you want me to do this with people like Anderson Silva and GSP and maybe even John Jones, then please let me know. But yeah, this is how I feel like Khabib fares against current UFC lightweights.